Welcome back to Viewpoint. My next guest is U.S. Congressman Keith Ellison, second term representing Minnesota's 5th congressional district. It includes Minneapolis and its suburbs. He serves on the House Financial Services and Foreign Affairs committees, and he's here having come through traffic for a very short segment. Thanks. I know it was a harrowing trip over here. This was a tough Ramadan. Not only were the days long, but you had this terrible, terrible situation developing. First, this uproar over the Park 51 mosque, and then this guy down in Gainesville who was threatening to burn a mosque and actually getting more attention than he warranted. He was a nut, and he knew how to, as a spoiled kid in class learns, be bad, the teacher's going to pay attention. He learned that. How was it, and how difficult was it to endure this?
I got to tell you, Ramadan is always a blessed time for me, and no external circumstances can impact the great mood that I'm in. It's the day that we have the iftars. It's the day that our kid, me and the family gets together. So it was wonderful from that respect. But the truth is, is that, yeah, we did experience a collision of crazies, is what I'll call them. Add to the mix Murfreesboro opposition to the mosque there that existed for many, many years. Not to mention people in Wisconsin, my neighboring state, and of course the Chicago area and other things as well. Not to mention politicians like Newt Gingrich whipping this thing up into a frenzy. One man, cab driver, minding his own business, asked by a passenger, "Are you a Muslim?" Then stabbed. And so, we faced a lot of difficulty. Hopefully we're moving into a time now where cooler heads are going to prevail, because the one thing that Terry Jones did for America is to reveal how bad things can get. And so,
talk to me about this. We've only got a little time left,
yeah.
But it started about a building and a place, but it pretty soon got into rhetoric. The signs that were being shown, the things that were being said by Gingrich and others, horrible stuff. Did you ever expect to hear that kind of stuff in America today?
Yeah, I do. I expect
from people like the guy running for president.
Yeah, people like Palin and Gingrich and Lazio and others whipping up hatred in order to gain a political advantage. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, it's not over yet, because people like Pam Geller and Robert Spencer aren't going to stop just because of an election. They're going to keep feeding the monster and trying to whip the American public into a frenzy against a discrete and insular minority. Typical scapegoat politics. But you know what? We've got to stand up the way you always do, Jim. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep on putting our best foot forward, trying to bring people to each other rather than be against each other. And if you have a moment for me to just say that, last Friday I was down in Lower Manhattan with a group of interfaith supporters of the right to worship, and Muslims, Christians, Jews, Catholics, Protestants, people of all faiths, all colors, all cultures, saying, you know what? In America, you can still worship as you choose. And so I take a lot of heart from that.
Okay. I actually want to have you come back, because I want to talk about this more at length and sort of unearth what was behind it and where you think it's going to go. But I need to take a break for a reason, and that is that a colleague and a friend of mine and yours.
That's right, who you introduced me to.
Ron Walters passed away just on Friday. And Ron had been on the show a number of times, but when I came to Washington in 1978, he was one of the first people I met. I was running the Palestine Human Rights Campaign. We didn't have a lot of friends, but we had Ron Walters. He was a mentor. He was an inspiration. He was working at the time with the Congressional Black Caucus as a foreign policy advisor, and he was the chair of African American Studies at Howard University. I got to know him and learn from him, but as close as we got in '84 and '88, got even closer because he was the senior foreign policy advisor for the Jackson campaign. His insights and his understanding of American politics and of African American history were absolutely breathtaking, and what I learned from him I will never forget. I still tell Ron Walters stories. He was on the show a number of times, and every time he was on, I learned something new. This was Ron Walters when Barack Obama won the election in December of 2008. Ron Walters reflecting on the legacy and what it meant going from King to Obama. Let's listen to Ron. What's the meaning of this? Describe the meaning as the African American community generally looks at this new president. how they see it and how they see it in the context of the King legacy?
Well, you know, I think what they're looking at is legacy here, because the King legacy, going all the way back to the 1965 Voting Rights Act, really set up so much of what we've been able to accomplish politically. And so from that moment to the blacks beginning to vote and beginning to elect officials, people will be looking at that and saying to themselves, my God, you know, how far we've come. And I'm sure that by 1988, neither one of us thought that in our lifetime we would see an African-American president. In reality, the civil rights movement was to close the gap between African-Americans and everybody else in every sphere of American life. So that in the 21st century, when we look at the gaps in housing and the gaps in wealth and the gaps in education and all of those gaps that still exist, the civil rights movement is in those gaps today. And so we have to reconceptualize it in those terms, because unless we sit down and fold our hands and say we won't struggle, we have to continue to push until those gaps are filled, because that really defines what kind of American citizen you are.
That's Ron Walters, and he won't be teaching us anymore, but we still have lessons to learn. That's all the time we have. For more information, log on to aaiusa.org. I'll see you next week on Viewpoint. Thanks.
Good job.